The cathedral doors burst open with a thunder that silenced every man inside. Chidi Okafor stood in the doorway, his white shirt torn, face streaked with sweat and dust, gripping a brown envelope that could destroy his father's world. "Stop this wedding!" His voice boomed through St. Matthew's Cathedral, shaking chandeliers and faith alike. The groom, his father, a proud 62-year-old businessman, turned pale. The best man froze mid-breath. Every guest felt the tension slice through the air. "Father," Chidi said, his voice trembling with fury and heartbreak, "the man you're marrying isn't who you think he is." Gasps rippled through the pews. What Chidi was about to reveal would turn joy into chaos, love into deception, and loyalty into war. And this was only the beginning. Before we dive into this explosive story of brotherhood, betrayal, and justice, hit like if you believe truth can't stay buried forever. Subscribe for more gripping tales of men pushed to the edge and beyond. The cathedral doors crashed open with a sound that rolled through the marble hall like thunder over the Atlantic. Every head turned. Chidi Okafor stood framed in sunlight and dust, breathing hard, blood drying on his collar, envelope clutched in one shaking hand. His voice cut the silence. "Stop this wedding." The words echoed against pillars and stained glass, carrying shock through 300 guests. At the altar, his father, Emma Okafor, titan of oil and logistics, froze mid-vow, eyes narrowing as disbelief wrestled with fury. No one moved. Ushers glanced at each other, unsure whether to intervene. The pastor lowered his hand. In that instant, the air itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see which man would speak first. Emma's deep voice finally boomed. "Chidi, what is the meaning of this?" It wasn't a question born of curiosity, but of command. Decades of authority lived in that tone, the same voice that had built empires and silenced boardrooms. Chidi stepped forward, shoes echoing on marble. "You can't sign that register. The man standing beside you isn't who you think he is." His hand trembled, but the conviction in his eyes was steady. Whispers rippled through the pews as the groom's companion, a sharply dressed businessman named Ikechukwu, shifted uneasily. He'd been Emma's partner for 20 years, a brother in profit and strategy. Now he stared at the younger man with a smile too tight to be calm. Emma's brow furrowed. "Enough of this drama. We will talk later." But Chidi didn't stop. "There won't be a later, father. He's been stealing from you millions, and it goes deeper than money." The envelope shook in his grip. He tore it open and scattered photographs across the marble steps. The glossy images fluttered like fallen leaves, bank transfers, signatures, offshore ledgers, men in suits exchanging briefcases, evidence of betrayal captured in cold daylight. Emma bent, picked one up, and studied it. The color drained from his face. "These accounts," he began, but his partner interrupted with a practiced laugh. "Forgeries. The boy has lost his mind." The congregation stirred. Chidi's voice cracked, louder now. "I followed him, father. I saw him meet with brokers from your rival firm. He's transferring our assets into his own companies abroad." Ikechukwu's mask slipped for a heartbeat. His jaw tightened. "You're drunk," he snapped. "You're jealous of men who build what you never could." The insult hung in the air like smoke. Emma straightened slowly, the photograph trembling in his hand. "Is it true?" The question was quiet, deadly. For the first time, the powerful businessman looked uncertain, a father trying to see truth through the fog of loyalty. Ikechukwu turned toward the guests. "This is madness! Someone call security!" But Chidi stepped between them, defiant. "You won't silence me. I have recordings, bank data, everything. He planned this from the day Mother died." Gasps swept the room. Old investors exchanged glances. Employees of the company shifted in unease. The image of two men united in trust was crumbling in real time. Emma's voice broke. 3 years we built together, and all this time—" His hand went to his chest, breath short. Chitty reached out instinctively. "Father, breathe. Don't let him see you weak." Ikechukwu took a cautious step back, calculating. "He's manipulating you, Emma. Look at him, angry, desperate. He's always resented my role in your life." The false calm in his tone made it worse. A murmur rose from the back as uniformed guards moved forward. The pastor tried to restore order, but Emma raised a trembling hand. "No, let him speak." Authority still lived in that command. Even chaos obeyed it. Chitty swallowed hard. "It isn't just theft. He's been using our company to launder money for foreign investors, men with criminal ties. I found contracts linking him to shipments that never existed." Emma stared at the evidence again, lips moving silently as numbers and dates matched memories. A realization flickered, tiny, then blinding. 23 million naira, he whispered. "Gone." Ikechukwu's charm finally shattered. "Too late to stop it," he hissed. "The accounts are empty, and soon I will be too." He turned as if to leave, but guards blocked the doorway. Emma's booming voice filled the cathedral. "You will not move another step." The authority of decades roared back. "You betrayed my trust, my company, my name." Ikechukwu smirked. "You made me what I am. Don't act surprised when your apprentice learns to surpass you." The taunt ignited rage. Emma lunged forward, but Chitty caught his arm. "Father, not here," he pleaded. "He wants you angry. He wants a scene to distract everyone." The old man froze, chest heaving, fury carved into every line of his face. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had already called them. Outside, the sun blazed over Lagos, indifferent to the drama unraveling inside the grand cathedral. Chitty gathered the scattered documents and handed them to a uniformed officer as the men arrived. "Check the bank codes. You'll find proof enough." His voice was raw but steady. Ikechukwu raised his hands in mock surrender. "You think this ends here? You have no idea what you've started." Even in cuffs, his tone dripped arrogance, a man convinced of his untouchable power. Emma sank onto the front pew, staring at the altar where moments ago he'd stood ready to seal a new chapter of his life. Now it lay in ruins around him, and Chitty knelt beside him. "I'm sorry, Father. I should have told you earlier, but I had to be sure." Emma's eyes were distant, the weight of betrayal pressing heavier than any chain. An officer approached. "We'll need statements from both of you. The evidence looks solid." He nodded respectfully at the older man, recognizing the legend behind the headlines. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters had arrived, drawn by whispers of scandal surrounding one of Lagos's most powerful men. Chitty shielded his father as they exited, but the damage was already public. That night, in the quiet of their mansion, the silence between them was louder than any accusation. Emma poured 2 glasses of water, hands still trembling. "You saved me, yet you broke me," he said. Chitty looked down. "I did what you taught me, Father. Protect the name, no matter the cost." The old man studied his son, seeing both courage and the shadows it cast. "Trust," Emma murmured. "The most expensive commodity in this world." He raised his glass in a hollow toast. To what's left of it, Chitty didn't drink. "He warned me, Father. Said it wasn't over." Outside, thunder rolled again, though the sky was clear, a sound that felt like a promise. Emma's gaze hardened. "Then we finish what he started. Tomorrow we talk to the police, the auditors, everyone. If there's a network behind him, we tear it apart." The son nodded slowly. In that moment, they weren't just father and son anymore. They were soldiers preparing for a different kind of war, one fought with truth, evidence, and unbreakable resolve. Down the street, in the glow of the city lights, a black car idled. Inside, a man spoke into a phone. The Okafors know too much. Plan B. The voice was calm, almost amused. Back inside the mansion, Chitty stared out the window, sensing movement beyond the gate. The air felt heavy again, charged with the same tension as the moment he'd burst into the cathedral. Emma joined him. "Whatever comes," he said, placing a steady hand on his son's shoulder. "We face it together." For the first time that day, Chitty believed him completely. The night swallowed the city in heat and silence. Somewhere, distant thunder answered, and the story of betrayal that began at the altar was only taking its first breath. The morning after the ruined wedding broke with a heavy haze over Lagos. In the Okafor mansion, silence hung thick as smoke. Every corner of the grand estate felt smaller, its wealth now tainted by betrayal. Chitty sat at the dining table, staring at a folder filled with the night's reports. The police had confirmed it. Ikachuku's accounts matched the offshore transfers. But the deeper he read, the clearer one thing became. This wasn't the work of one man. Emma entered, still wearing the same shirt from the night before. He moved slowly, not from weakness, but from the exhaustion of disbelief. "They found nothing else?" he asked. His voice was low, controlled, hiding the storm beneath. Chitty shook his head. "Only what I gave them." "But father, the transaction started before the partnership began. That means there were others helping him." The old man's eyes darkened. "Inside our circle?" The son nodded. "Our accountants, our advisors, maybe even the board." He pushed forward several bank statements. "Different signatures, same routing path. They used our own networks against us." Emma exhaled through his nose, a long, steady breath. "When men build empires together, they also build the cracks that destroy them." He sank into a chair. "Who else knows?" "Only the detective. He says they're investigating quietly, but we need to be ready." Chitty leaned forward. "I think Ikachuku had help beyond our borders." The old man's hand tightened around the edge of the table. "Foreign interests," he murmured. "Always ready to buy loyalty with blood money." He looked at his son. "This isn't just betrayal, it's war for control." Outside, the sound of engines drifted through the gates. Security trucks from the police unit arrived, but Emma's instincts stirred uneasily. "They're early," he said. "Too early." 2 officers stepped out, but Chitty recognized one instantly. "That's not the team from last night." The moment he said it, the newcomers drew weapons. "Inside!" Emma barked. They moved fast, slamming the heavy oak doors. Bullets ripped through glass and plaster. The mansion's calm shattered. Chitty pulled his father behind a marble column. "They're not police. They're his men." Emma's jaw clenched. "Then Ikachuku still controls someone inside the force." He looked toward the staircase. "The panic room, go!" They sprinted, ducking under the echoing gunfire as shouts filled the air. Once inside the reinforced chamber, Emma keyed the silent alarm. Metal panels sealed the doorway. "They'll try to make it look like robbery," he said. "That's how these networks clean their mess." Chitty watched the surveillance monitor. Men in tactical gear swept through the halls, searching methodically. They weren't there to steal, they were there to erase. "He's tying up loose ends," he whispered. Emma picked up the secure phone, dialing a number only a handful of people knew. "Detective Adabo," he said sharply. "Your men have been compromised. We're under attack." Static crackled on the line, followed by a grim reply. "Stay down. Backup's on the way. Trust no one until you see my face." Minutes crawled like hours. The feed showed the attackers planting devices, firebombs disguised as power tools. "They want to burn everything," Chitty said. "The evidence, the documents, everything." Emma moved to the storage vault and began pulling out metal cases. "Not everything." Inside the vault lay years of archives, contracts, ledgers, personal recordings of meetings. "We built this empire with paper. We'll save it with truth." Outside, sirens screamed closer. The fake officers began retreating, leaving smoke and fire in their wake. When the real police finally broke through the gates, the Okafors emerged from the panic room coughing but alive. Detective Adabo, grim and ash-streaked, approached them. "You were right," he said. "Ikechukwu has men inside the department. We're cleaning house." He studied Emma carefully. "But we found something in his apartment, files labeled with your name and your son's." Chitty frowned. "What kind of files?" The detective opened a folder. Inside were photos, taken from rooftops, street corners, airports, surveillance shots of the Okafors going back months. Emma's breath hitched. "They've been watching us this long?" The detective nodded. "And not just you. Other businessmen, same method, same pattern. It's bigger than one company." Chitty felt a chill. "A brotherhood." The detective's eyes met his. "Exactly. A circle of men across borders, moving money, manipulating deals, staging deaths. Ikechukwu was just one arm of something older." Emma took the folder, studying the faces. He recognized several, familiar figures from conferences and investment meetings. "Men who shook my hand," he said bitterly. "Men who toasted my success." The detective closed his notebook. "We're tracking them, but it won't be easy. They have influence everywhere. You need protection." Chitty glanced at his father. "We're not hiding again. We'll fight this our way." The detective sighed. "Then we do it together." He handed over a flash drive. "These files are encrypted backups of what we seized. Keep them safe." That night, the mansion smelled of smoke and fear. Chitty sat by the window, the drive clutched tight in his palm. "He knew this would happen," he said quietly. "Ikechukwu said we didn't understand what we'd started." Emma stood beside him, silhouetted against the faint city lights. "Then we learn fast. Tomorrow we go public." Chitty turned, surprised. "You want to tell the press?" The old man nodded. "If we hide, they control the story. If we speak, we take the power back." The next morning, reporters gathered outside the company's headquarters. Cameras flashed as Emma Okafor stepped to the podium, his son at his side. "There are men who think they own Nigeria," he began. "Men who trade integrity for influence. We will not be silent." The statement shook the financial world. Within hours, stock prices trembled and government offices buzzed. But behind the uproar, another message arrived. An email with no sender, only one line of text. "You should have stayed quiet." Emma read it, face unreadable. "They're testing us," he said, "to see if we flinch." Chitty leaned over his shoulder. "Then we don't." Days passed with tension coiled tight around every moment. Detectives moved in secrecy. Allies whispered warnings. The Okafor offices became a fortress of files and men with guns. Then, late one night, a package arrived at the gate. No markings, no return address. Inside was a single flash drive identical to the detective's. Chitty plugged it into a secured terminal. What appeared on the screen froze him. Footage of a meeting room, time-stamped 2 years earlier. Ikechukwu sat at a table with men from across West Africa, executives, bankers, military officials. Their faces were clear, their words damning. Plans for laundering, coercion, murder disguised as accidents. Emma stepped closer. "He recorded his own brotherhood," he murmured. "Insurance against betrayal." Chitty stared at the final frame, a signature, bold and familiar. "Father, that's your signature." Emma blinked, shocked. "Impossible." But the proof glared back. Someone had forged his name to authorize shell companies tied to the network. "They used me," he whispered. "My reputation gave them cover." The realization cut deep. For years, his empire had served as camouflage for criminals. The weight of it pressed down, but something in his eyes hardened. "Then we take back the name properly," he said. Chitty nodded. "We start with the man who forged that signature." He clicked pause on the video, freezing on the face of a smiling broker. "He's in Abuja. I'll find him." Emma gripped his shoulder. "Not alone. This war began between men who trusted each other. It will end the same way, between men who refuse to break." They stood there in silence as the servers hummed around them. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping the windows like distant drums. The Brotherhood in the shadows had drawn first blood, but the Okafors were still standing. Night pressed against the windows of the safe house like a living thing. Chitty sat before a wall of screens, each flickering with lines of encrypted data. Across from him, Emma leaned back in a steel chair, eyes sunken but alert, the glow of a single desk lamp carving deep lines into his face. They had not slept in 2 days, and truth had started to taste like metal on their tongues. Detective Adabo arrived carrying a battered briefcase and the smell of rain. He dropped it on the table with a dull thud. Inside were new reports from the Economic Crime Commission, pages stamped confidential, names of men spread across continents. The detective's voice was hoarse. "Your partner's network wasn't just laundering money, it was moving power." Chitty frowned. "Power?" Adabo nodded. "Military contracts, energy rights. Every transaction was a step in building influence. They buy loyalty where they can't win it." The son exchanged a glance with his father. The pattern was worse than either had feared. By dawn, the secure room filled with other men, intelligence officers, auditors, uniformed agents, each holding his own secrets close. They formed a circle around the evidence table, like soldiers around a fire. On the screens, maps bloomed with red markers tracing a web from Lagos to Accra, Johannesburg, Dubai. Emma stared at it and muttered, "This isn't business, it's conquest." Hours later, the task force convoy left for headquarters. 3 armored cars rolled through narrow streets, still slick with rain. Chitty rode beside Adabo in the lead vehicle, tapping a pen against his knee. "If these files are real," he said, "then half our allies belong to them." The detective answered softly, "And the other half are afraid to find out." At the midpoint bridge, headlights flared behind them. A van accelerated, ramming the rear escort. Gunfire burst like thunderclaps. Chitty ducked as glass exploded around him. The convoy scattered toward the docks. In the chaos, one attacker was hit and fell beside a shipping container, clutching his stomach. Chitty knelt beside him while Adabo covered the perimeter. The man's breath rattled. "Makinde," he gasped. "Chief Makinde controls the rest." Then his head dropped back, the name echoing through the rain. When the smoke cleared, Emma arrived in another vehicle, face grim. "Makinde," he repeated. "A senator. I've stood beside him at conferences." Adabo zipped the body bag shut. "Then you've been shaking hands with the enemy." They regrouped at a deserted warehouse. Rain drummed on corrugated metal as Adabo laid out photos of McKinley's private jet, his security teams, his secret meetings with foreign executives. "He sponsors the network," the detective said. "He's the spine of it." Emma stared at one photo longer than the rest, an image of himself and Makinda at an awards ceremony 5 years earlier, smiling for cameras. He rubbed his temples. "Every handshake becomes a chain," he murmured. That night, the mood inside the safe house was heavier than ever. Chitty scrolled through archives until he found records of government tenders signed by McKinley's office. Each document led to shell companies already traced to Ikachuku. "They've been feeding off our contracts for years," he said quietly. Adabo poured black coffee into paper cups. "You can't fight them in secret forever. We need daylight." Emma looked up, weary but decisive. "Then we find someone willing to expose it." 2 days later, a knock echoed at the reinforced door. A tall man entered wearing a journalist's press badge. His name was Tunde Ayo, a reporter known for dismantling corruption cases no one else dared to touch. "Detective Adabo said you might have a story," he began. Chitty eyed him cautiously. A story can get men killed. Tunde smiled faintly. Then we print it before they find us. Emma studied the newcomer, sensing honesty in the exhaustion behind his eyes. You'll need proof strong enough to burn a government, he warned. I have it, Tunde replied, tapping his recorder. They spent the night assembling the broadcast plan. Data servers were mirrored overseas, backup files encrypted under code names only the three men knew. At sunrise, the small living room became a newsroom. Cameras rolled as Emma faced the lens. My name is Emma Okafor, he began, voice steady despite fatigue. I built an empire of industry, and unknowingly I helped a brotherhood of thieves hide behind it. His confession echoed in the room, heavy with truth. Tunde guided the interview, asking about dates, figures, names. Chitty added details of the forged documents and the assassination attempt. When the segment aired on national television that night, it struck like a hammer. Across the city, phones lit up with messages, boardrooms filled with panic. Some men fled, others called to threaten. The network of power was suddenly visible, and visibility was its greatest fear. By midnight, the Okafor mansion was surrounded again, this time by real police and reporters. Emma addressed them from the gate. We are not victims, he said. We are witnesses, and we will not be silent. Inside, Chitty watched the coverage on television. His father's image filled the screen, calm yet fierce. For the first time since the wedding, he saw something beyond pain. He saw resolve. But the victory lasted only hours. As dawn crept in, an explosion rocked the financial district. News broke that 2 of their cooperating agents were dead, their offices destroyed. Adabo burst through the door. They're retaliating. McKinley's cleaning house. Emma turned to his son. We've stirred giants. Chitty nodded grimly. Then we strike before they stand. Adabo spread a map across the table. McKinley's convoy leaves Abuja tonight for a private meeting on the border. If we intercept it, we end this. Emma's gaze hardened. Then that's where we go. Before leaving, he clasped Tunde's hand. If we don't return, publish everything. The journalist's grip was firm. You have my word. Outside, engines roared to life. Rain began again, soft at first, then relentless. The 3 men climbed into armored trucks, headlights slicing through darkness toward the highway that led north. In the reflection of the windshield, Chitty saw his father's face, tired but unbroken. Whatever happens, Emma said quietly, truth travels faster than bullets. The convoy disappeared into the storm, and the city's skyline faded behind them like a memory half buried by rain. The war against the Brotherhood was no longer about money or survival. It was about reclaiming the right to stand unafraid in daylight. The convoy sliced through the northern highway before sunrise, its headlights cutting thin lines through the lingering mist. In the lead truck, Chitty sat beside Detective Adabo, his jaw tight, hands steady on the rifle resting between his knees. Behind them, Emma Okafor rode silent, eyes fixed on the horizon where truth and danger waited to meet. They had followed the senator's encrypted coordinates all night, chasing a signal that jumped from tower to tower like a hunted animal. He's running, Adabo said, but not far. The radio crackled. Static dissolved into the senator's calm voice. Gentlemen, McKinley drawled, turn around before this road ends both our stories. Emma took the mic. It ends for you today. His tone was granite. The silence that followed was heavy with recognition, one predator speaking to another. When the first explosion tore the sky, it wasn't from their side. McKinley's convoy had mined the bridge ahead. The blast threw fire into the dawn, and steel screamed as one escort truck collapsed into the river below. Chitty dragged Adabo from the wreckage, coughing through smoke. We move on foot. They advanced under cover of rising smoke, following tire marks into the scrubland beyond the bridge. The air smelled of diesel and dust. Emma's silhouette led the way, steady as a compass. "He's close," he said. "Stay sharp." They found Makinda's SUV abandoned near a cluster of storage sheds. The door swung open. Inside, papers littered the seats, contracts, receipts, and a flash drive taped beneath the dashboard. Chitty pocketed it as Adabo whispered, "He's still here." A single shot rang out from the shadows, grazing the detective's arm. They dropped behind a rusted truck. "Makinda!" Emma's voice thundered across the yard. "Face me like a man!" From the far side, the senator emerged, immaculate as always, a pistol glinting in his hand. "You don't understand, Emma," he said, smiling. "Without us, this country collapses. We are the order inside the chaos." Chitty rose, anger burning through fear. "You mean you own the chaos?" He fired once, the bullet striking the ground at Makinda's feet. "No more speeches." Makinda lowered his weapon slowly. "You think you've won? Those documents you hold, they're nothing without context. Destroy me, and the men behind me will erase you." Emma stepped forward. "Then let them come. But you'll answer for your part first." He signaled Adabo, who lifted a small transmitter. The detective's body camera streaming live to Tunde Ayo's newsfeed in Lagos. Makinde realized too late. The red light blinked, capturing every word, every confession. "You can't broadcast this," he growled. Emma's gaze didn't waver. "Already done." A second explosion shattered the shed windows, Makinda's guards returning fire from the ridge. Chaos erupted. Chitty pulled his father behind a crate as bullets shredded the air. "They'll bring the roof down." Adabo shouted into his radio, calling for backup. "We're pinned! East sector!" Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, a promise fighting its way through the storm of gunfire. Makinda crawled toward the burning SUV, desperate for escape, but Emma intercepted him. They grappled beside the flames, two men who had once toasted prosperity, now locked in a struggle for truth. Smoke wrapped them like ghosts of the past. Chitty joined the fight, wrenching the pistol free. Makinda gasped, blood on his lips. "You think you can clean this?" he hissed. "You'll never wash it away." Emma stared down at him, the fire reflecting in his eyes. "I'm not trying to wash it," he said quietly. "I'm ending it." He turned to Adabo. "Take him." By the time reinforcements arrived, the senator was in cuffs, his convoy in ruins. The network's files, recovered from the flash drive, began spreading through secure channels before sunrise. Newsrooms buzzed, markets trembled, and the mask of power cracked across the nation. Days later, in the quiet courtroom where testimony began, Emma and Chitty sat side by side. Cameras flashed, but neither flinched. When asked why he risked everything, Emma answered simply, "Because silence feeds men like him." Outside, the crowd erupted, not in chaos but in applause. For the first time in months, hope sounded louder than fear. Adabo met them on the courthouse steps, bandaged but grinning. "We did it," he said. Emma placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "No," he replied. "We started it." Chitty nodded, understanding. Justice wasn't a finish line. It was a road they would walk until their last breath. That evening, the three men gathered on the mansion balcony overlooking Lagos. The city glowed beneath them, restless, yet alive. "To truth," Adabo said, raising a glass of water. "To endurance," Chitty added. Emma's voice completed it softly. "To every man who refuses to kneel before corruption." They drank as thunder rolled once more in the distance. Not a warning this time, but a reminder. The storm had passed, yet the sound of it would always live inside them. Below, the city lights flickered like scattered embers, proof that even after betrayal, something stronger could rise from ruin. The night closed around them, peaceful at last, carrying the echo of one hard-won truth. Honor, once reclaimed, is the only power that endures.